Aloha, I'm Jack Dugan with Pacific Media Group in Kauai now. Today we have Kauai County Mayor Derek Kawakami addressing some of the pressing issues facing the island community. Aloha, Mayor Kawakami. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing, first of all?
Oh, we're doing good. Right now we're juggling just the day-to-day county operation, and then of course, at least we're not in it alone, but we are dealing with the recent spike in cases. But I think most of the states and a lot of the counties, in some way, shape, or form, are dealing with the same thing. So we get to learn from everybody else what works, what doesn't work. So that's the positive.
Yeah, good to hear. Yeah, thanks for that. Well, and that's kind of a segue right into the first topic. So just kind of looking to get an understanding from you and your perspective of the status of, your county, maybe some of the most important things to talk about and present as far as issues and current things you guys are dealing with. However you would respond to that would be greatly appreciated.
I think the first thing on everybody's mind is the COVID-19 response. But I think most people would be surprised that as much as that has been on the top of everybody's mind and certainly gaining the most attention worldwide, I think Kauai County has really led the way to be able to focus on our bread and butter operation, primarily because we feel we had responded initially the way that most places should have responded, by really clamping down, buying time until we could get as much vaccines out to our general public and to our workforce, to the elderly and people that are really vulnerable, so that we didn't have too much disruption in services. So although we've had, our team focus on COVID-19 response, it really allowed our people at Public Works to resurface probably more miles of road that has ever been seen before. We are able to create Kealaula at Pu'oloke in record time, which is a permanent supportive housing facility that's managed by Women in Need to take care of our houseless family members. We're able to pivot and modernize our DMV, really bring our services out to the community rather than having it all centralized. So I think the thing that we really have been focused on is continuing to move forward with progress and innovation, all the while trying our best to keep people healthy and safe.
Gotcha. Yeah, interesting. Good to hear those updates. So you kind of pointed out, as you acknowledged, Kauai certainly had, at least here in Hawaii, arguably hands down the most restrictive, kind of mandates from the beginning, as you just noted as well. Do you anticipate, it's hard to predict the future. We're not looking for you to do that, but do you anticipate at this point in time any further restrictions that you'll be pushing for your county, specifically for Kauai?
No, we're not. We are concerned about the young children that are now becoming sick. But we keep a close eye on what our hospital capacity is, because as much as we can talk about ICU beds and hospitalization rates, what we have to be mindful of is you can have all the beds in the world, but if you have a staff that's burnt out and you got to call in federal support, one, that costs money. We don't know how long that resource is going to be available, but the bigger concern is basically frying our healthcare workers to the point where they don't want to be healthcare workers anymore. And for Kauai, in our first response, we really held the hospital system as the castle, right? We were willing to get in the trenches and build, basically a wall around our hospital and healthcare system, because we saw what were happening to healthcare systems across the nation and across the world. And we really didn't want them to be that first line of defense. We wanted our healthcare system to be the absolute last line of defense. And so I don't see us going towards restrictions that we put up during the first evolution of our response. But you are starting to see things like giving our associates the option to either get a vaccine or undergo regular testing, which I made it clear to our workforce here on the County of Kauai that as their mayor, I'm supportive of whatever path they should choose. We're going to try to make it work out for them. We're not requiring any sort of proof of why you don't want to get a vaccine. We're just saying that one, what's important is we keep our workforce healthy and safe because the number of cases are concerning. But two, we have critical services that get called into action before, during, and after any sort of disaster like hurricanes. And we don't have a deep bench where if we have a segment of our operation go down due to illness, we're talking about disruption in services that our people rely on. And I think for the general public, they don't really understand until those services stop. And so we cannot afford to do that. So we're trying to, one, mitigate the spread as much as possible. But two, we're also trying to make sure that we have a healthy workforce because we have critical and essential services that our people depend on, like trash pickup, we have transportation, we have roads crews, we have park maintenance crews. We got people that work at motor vehicle registration and driver's licensing. And of course, we have our first responder community that is absolutely critical, especially since we are still in brush fire season, especially since we still are in a hurricane season. These are critical times that we have to make sure that we're doing the best thing to maintain a healthy workforce. And prevention and detection are two key components for mitigation of disease within an organization and a community.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Thanks for all that. So in summary, it sounds like at this point in time, really the biggest effort, or I should say additional restrictions or things that are being put in place is more related to the vaccines or testing options that you're speaking of, not so much related to businesses or gathering sizes. We know EGA had recently put in a statewide order, but beyond that, as far as your county, it sounds like it's more focused on those areas of testing or vaccinations at this point.
Yeah, of course, under the governor's emergency proclamation, there is now, right, restrictions on social gathering sizes. They did scale that back. And of course, for some businesses, there were capacity restrictions. For professionally organized events, they have to inform and consult with the county, more so that they can just let us know that these events are happening. But secondary, we can provide them good information to help mitigate risk and still continue to have these type of events like weddings and celebrations that are professionally organized. Yeah, we don't want to create a disruption in the economy. And I know a lot of people have said, clamp down on the visitor industry, but the numbers are pretty obvious that the number of cases that are coming in are not primarily from visitors visiting our islands to do some sightseeing and be a part of what we love here in Hawaii. A lot of the cases are from our own residents that are traveling, and many of them are coming back. And many of the cases show that these type of gathering situations have contributed significantly to the sharp rise in cases. So a lot of what the governor had put in his proclamation is evidence-based that these are sources of concern. These are temporary measures where we can scale back and then mitigate the continued rise in cases over time without causing major disruption in our business community.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate that. So, and it kind of ties into our next subject, which is, tourism and resource management of the island. And you mentioned how, there's some concern about the visitors, or, we see that right here in Hawaii. Are the visitors bringing that? We know that there's many that are back, if not close to, pre-pandemic levels of tourism. And that comes up. We hear about that. I think it also a lot of times ties into our resources, right? Which is nothing new, but traffic on the roadways, over tourism issues, perhaps beach access, things like that always affect us in the local community. What would you describe as some of the major things that you and the county have been involved in as far as trying to best manage the resources of the island and manage tourism to the best of our abilities?
Yeah, it all boils down to the balancing act and the goal of striking the right balance between having a good, healthy economy, and having good quality of life and maintaining a level of quality of life that doesn't end up overly frustrating our people. And I think what we're seeing is we got a little glimpse of what it looks like to not have the visitor industry, both the good but also the bad, because a lot of people were out of work. A lot of the businesses that are reliant on the increased foot traffic that the visitor industry brings in suffered. But on the flip side, people were able to enjoy the hiking trails, the beaches, actually finding a parking spot. The neighborhoods that are front and center of visitor attractions were able to have a sense of peace and quiet and serenity that they haven't experienced. Many of the kids nowadays, my own kids, do not know a Kaua'i before all of this. And I might be one of the last generation that can remember Kaua'i with a sugar industry and with less traffic. And so what we're seeing now is that there is an awareness that, yes, the visitor industry contributes to our economy, but they also contribute to some of the quality of life issues like traffic. And this is really where the county and government can step in. So what we learned with the floods in 2018, it's about what kind of carrying capacity certain areas of our island has. And that's why we have the destination management area plan. That's a partnership with HTA, our Kauai Visitors Bureau, and of course the County of Kauai, and our Office of Economic Development interfaces closely with those organizations to start looking at low-hanging fruit that we can actually move on. So we're looking at different modes of transportation. Our Office of Economic Development has worked with our partners to create a website that really informs our visitors of different transportation options. So, we have shuttle services that exist. The Hanalei Initiative runs a shuttle service on North Kauai. And of course, what has to happen next is we have to make some infrastructure improvements at some of our popular destinations to be able to accommodate shuttle services. But we also have to realize that you have to disincentivize visitors from jumping in their vehicle to get to certain places that we want to preserve for local families. So we're looking at a parking fee structure study for areas like Poipu Beach Park, where there should be non-resident parking fees, so that we can preserve some parking spaces for our local families and start to encourage people to take other modes of transportation to come and share what we all love, which is the natural beauty of Kauai. So those are the things that we're working on. I think some of the things that have really positioned Kauai to better manage the visitor industry is our planning department has already established a way to regulate vacation rentals that are outside of the VDA. And they've done that years ago, so it's already well established. We were able to work with Airbnb and Expedia and those third-party platforms to get to an agreement where they were able to say, look, we get it. We're fully going to work with Kauai County. We want to make sure that we are advertising properties that have the necessary use certificates. We want to make sure that the properties that are on our websites are in compliance. And if they're not in compliance, let us know and we'll take them down. And that really was a game changer as far as our ability to manage the vacation rental market, especially the ones that popped up outside of the visitor destination areas. and be able to start regulating, enforcing, and really scaling back on that. And also really it enables the county to be able to collect the revenue, our fair share, from the vacation rental market as well. So it's a comprehensive approach because there is no silver bullet, and people have to realize that there are many things that are controllable, but many things that are uncontrollable. As far as people saying, well, Mayor, tell the flights to stop coming, I could easily appease to our constituents that want me to do that. But to be honest, it's like that's really out of our wheelhouse and jurisdiction to be able to control that. So we try to control what we can control, and we focus our time, money, and effort on what we actually can control.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for all that. And you noted on one topic in there that I just want to clarify, and I think it was fairly clear, but when you talked about the parking spaces and a fee structure, it sounded like for visitors, but where it preserved free parking for residents for Kaua'i. Is that a correct understanding?
But it wouldn't necessarily right at the get-go be reserved. I mean, it is one option we're looking at, but we're looking at what the state has done and what places like Hyannis State Beach Park has done, which is really create a reservation system, right? Like there's a capacity that if you want a parking stall, you're gonna have to make a reservation, and it comes with a price. But what that naturally does is it preserves free parking for local residents that don't have to make a reservation, because we do want to strike that balance where, yes, the visitors are coming to Hawaii to enjoy the same places we love, but we cannot continue to push local families aside and say, hey, I'm sorry, you can't find a parking. There's many other beaches. So we're trying to create that balance and create a better positive environment for both the visitors that come and spend a lot of money, which we're dependent on, but also maintaining that quality of life that our people deserve to have.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification. One last question I had in this topic is, I believe Polynesian Adventure Tours, if I'm correct, started a kind of a new model from what I heard of a hop on, hop off, trying to alleviate some of the demand where there's not enough supply with rental cars. I think was part of it, but then also potentially an ongoing model that may help to alleviate some of the traffic and just cars on the road from visitors. How much do you know about that? Has it gained much traction?
I'm not so familiar how much traction, because I haven't actually said, hey, how's the capacity? What's the customer count? But that's information we can get and send over to you. But what I will tell you is that the model is not going to work if we just say that a shuttle service alone is going to solve the problem, because most people, myself included, when I travel, I want whatever is the most convenient. And usually what's the most convenient is me jumping in my own car and finding my own parking spot, packing my own family in the vehicle. And if the place allows for that, that's the road I'm going to take. So we as an administration have really come to the realization that that is why you have to incentivize shuttle services for our visitors and really create a disincentive for people to just jump on their cars and get down to the beach park and roll up and be able to compete with local families for that same parking stall. And really that's why we're creating that structure. Is if you want to move people a certain way, it's a series of pulleys that create incentives and disincentives and really shape the behavior that we're looking for. And we really believe that's the structure that's going to really move the needle in creating at least a better sense of harmony between the visitor industry and the way of life that our people have come to love and expect and should have.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate all that. Okay, so moving on to another topic of employment. Obviously, it's been quite a roller coaster. Looking back with our initial shutdowns here in Hawaii. I know each market has been a little different, each island market, but overall it was across the board with major unemployment at the beginning, and then a return to businesses being open, tourism coming back, and now there's a different set of issues related to employment with employers not being able to find workers and good workers. You even noted some of the burnout, perhaps, as you might call it, in the health industry with the hospitals and things like that. So what do you see as the dynamic, I guess, first of all, on Kauai? And then are there things that are can be done to help, solve some of these issues?
Well, I really think that we have to take a good look at our unemployment system, and because we have to realize that there are families and there are individuals that really need that unemployment system, and that it does serve a purpose. But I will also tell you that when you have a system that doesn't have any incentive for people to actually go back to work when there's work to be had, we're gonna run into problems, and we have run into some problems. One of the biggest challenges I hear from businesses is how hard it is to get their workers to come back. Many workers are opting to say, hey, I'm finally got in the system. I'll come back later. That is a challenge that is hard to solve. What we did on our end and utilizing CARES Act money is we said, we realize that there are a number of people that cannot get into the unemployment system, that there are many people that are going to be unemployed, and whether they're self-employed or they've fallen through the cracks, they need to be able to provide for their families. So we really created the Rise to Work program. And it was a program that we were already working on for other purposes. But when COVID-19 hit and we had a large number of people unemployed, we said this is the perfect time for us to be able to utilize this program. What it does is it basically partners up with nonprofits and businesses that have labor needs, and it helps people get back to work. And we have utilized CARES Act money, and with the generosity of Priscilla Shan and Mark Zuckerberg, who helped fund the second wave of the Rise to Work program, we were able to partner nonprofit organizations, private businesses with people that were unemployed and looking for work. And it's created some good relationships between employer and employee. And what it's done is it's helped people get off the bench, get paid, but also be productive. Because one critical component of getting people through a pandemic or any challenge is that many people need to have a sense of purpose. It's not just about a paycheck. It's about them feeling that they have contributed, that they have a sense of purpose, that they have a belonging. And there were a lot of people who did not want to stay home and just collect. And I have to say that both times we maxed out the program where everybody that, put it this way, it was a success because we basically sold out. And it's something we want to continue on in the future. And we really hope that we can sort of take a look at ways that we can make adjustments to the current unemployment system to be able to perhaps utilize some of what we learned from Rise to Work and incorporate that to help people get a helping hand, not necessarily just giving out money, because it's so important that there are incentives for people to get out there and be productive and get back to the job.
Gotcha. Really interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Thanks for sharing.
You.
Okay, I'm going to move into another topic now. The real estate, and it's a whole nother can of worms. Obviously, unfortunately, can be a can of worms here in Hawaii with as we know how unaffordable real estate can be, and even rentals can be to even find, let alone afford for many local families. How would you describe the dynamic in the Kauai market? Let's say maybe just since COVID kind of began impacting us last March of 2020 through today, and are there things that can be done to help local families be able to whether it be buy or hopefully buy, but just have affordable housing?
There's a number of things that local governments can and should do, and we're moving the needle on that. You know, under our housing agency and under the leadership of Adam Roversi and his team, you know, we've really taken a look at the policy that we have on paper, and I believe most housing policies in Hawaii fall under what I would say sounds great on paper, has great intent, but is just ineffective at actually getting people to build affordable housing, because that's what it boils down to. You know, UHERO had a great report on what's known as inclusionary zoning, and most of our housing policies are in some way, shape, or form, and ours included, as far as being inclusionary zoning, which pretty much means if a developer wants to come in, they're going to have to commit to building a certain amount of affordable housing units to get their permits to proceed, which sounds great, right? It sounds great to say the developer is going to have to build all the housing. But what's happening is developers are just taking their show and building somewhere else, or building around the policy, or having to subsidize the affordable housing by building very expensive housing. And it's a model that sounds great. It's easy for any elected official to get out there and say that this is the way we're going to tackle affordable housing. But realistically, if it doesn't work, it's ineffective. And our old housing policy sounded great. It was, and I will tell you, I would vote aye on it because it sounds good. But after time, if there's no fruits from that labor, then it's ineffective. So we really worked with our county council to make adjustments to the housing policy. We really took a look at where the county could play a role. And one of the things that we realized is if we want to get a certain product, the best way to do it is through public-private partnerships, meaning what we did at Kealaula at Pu'oloke is we were able to work with the state who EO'd a parcel of property to the county of Kaua'i, where we had government land, we had existing infrastructure, and just by coming to the table with that, we're naturally able to lower the cost of goods sold for the developer, so that he was able to create a product that was cheaper because we had lowered the cost and investment that they had to make on their end. And, you know, moving forward, that's really, we believe the best model is to take a look at what we have as far as resources to come to the table with, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be underutilized land that would be ideal for affordable housing, and then partnering up with the experts that can build the housing to actually get these affordable units online. And that's the approach that we're taking moving forward. And it's not often the most popular approach, but the right decisions many of the time have not been popular. And so we are focused on doing what's right and what's effective and efficient. And we're willing to take the hits because we believe in it. And we believe that we can provide much more housing for our people with this type of model.
Gotcha. And in that type of model you're describing, and I don't know if this is possible, but you know, you hear local families that are trying to buy their own home, right? And they oftentimes feel that they're competing against a global market in a sense, right? A lot of people from the continental US, the mainland, for sure, but then even people from other, you know, around the world. I think it's true for Kauai as well. Can that be addressed, or is there anything that can be done as part of these programs to help ensure that you know, residents, local families, Kama'aina, have the ability? I don't know. Are there any ways?
Yes. To answer your question, there is absolutely ways that we can help. There are ways to give our people a chance to be able to compete for these units. But people need to understand that there are laws and constitutional rights that we have to abide by. But there are ways to shape housing that is targeted towards workforce employees that work in that general area, which is one way to address it. But two, and most importantly, it's getting our people educated and mortgage ready, and help them by improving their credit score, by helping them understand that there are ways and adjustments in their lifestyle that they actually can create a little bucket of money to get them ready, even if they thought it was impossible. And we do that by partnering with our local financial institutions. And some of them have really stepped up to the plate when we start having these type of county sponsored housing opportunities to really work with applicants to get them credit worthy, to help them improve their credit score, pay down some of their existing debt, and then help qualify them and pre-qualify them so that when these units become available, that right out the gate, they're ready to go. And many of our families that have moved into the affordable housing units that have been built out have gone through these programs. And in fact, for some of them, it is a requirement that they go through these programs, because we want to make sure that once they are ready to jump and get into the market of purchasing their first home, that they have the support, the education, and the skill set to maintain those mortgage payments so that they don't fall into a default situation and have to foreclose. Because we really don't only want to get them under the roof, we want to make sure that they can stay under the roof for the long haul, and give them the type of tools that they need to be able to do that.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks for all that. Well, that concludes the topics that we wanted to go through. Really appreciate all your insights and the time that you took on each of them, and really tried to share. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you would like to add or note before we conclude?
No, I just feel I feel extremely honored to be placed in a position to help our community through I think I would say it was unforeseen challenges. And I really want to thank not only the people of Kaua'i and Ni'ihau, but the entire state of Hawaii for being able to come together. Many people from different islands have sent emails to our offices just saying words of inspiration, really have encouraged our operation to continue carrying on. And it's really a testament to that aloha spirit that we talk about. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, and the people of Hawaii know how to come together and create that type of support so we can all lean on each other. So I do want to thank all the people out there. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk story.
Yeah.
And I hope I did good.
Yeah, went good. It was really helpful. I'm sure everyone will appreciate it. And again, thank you
All
for your
right.
time, Mayor.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.